When we discuss standardized field sobriety tests, there's 3 tests: horizontal gaze nystagmus, walk and turn, one leg stand. Let's start with HGN, or horizontal gaze nystagmus. It's the most accurate test, right? 88% accurate in determining alcohol impairment above a 0.08. Generally, an officer moves their finger all the way to the right, all the way to the left. You're looking at it, they're gonna start seeing involuntary jerking of your eye, right? It's the most reliable test. Fortunately, in Tennessee, can't be used against you in the vast majority of cases, which is fortunate for our clients, because then we're really only focused on the walk and turn and one leg stand. But sometimes we do talk about the HGN. So generally speaking, what is HGN, or horizontal gaze nystagmus?
Yeah, so like you said, the horizontal gaze nystagmus, based on the officer's training through the organization that trains them on DUI investigations, the National Traffic Highway Safety Administration, their standardization studies have found that is the most accurate test. There is still quite a bit of room for error on the officer's side. So the horizontal gaze nystagmus test is looking for, like what Brandon said, nystagmus in the eyes. So what that means is it's just an involuntary jerking of the eye. It's a very small, just shake-like movement that the officer is looking for in the eye. This test, like Brandon said, they're going to have you follow what's called a stimulus. It can be a pin, it could be a pen light, it could be a finger. As long as it's 12 to 15 inches from your face, that's really all the officers are trained on. They're not trained on a specific tool to use for that test. But they're just, like Brandon said, they're going to do 3 separate tests. The first one they're going to be doing is called equal tracking, just checking to make sure that's actually a pre-test, not one of the 3. They're just checking to make sure your eyes track properly to go ahead and move forward with the 3 tests. So the first phase of that test is called lack of smooth pursuit. They're just tracking your eyes. The way officers are trained, they need to keep that stimulus parallel and not go. They don't need to stop during the middle of that test, because that would obviously cause your eyes to not smoothly pursue your stimulus. The second part of that test, they're looking for what's called distinct and sustained nystagmus at maximum deviation. That's the one that's really painful. When I hear it from a lot of people, they're holding it really, really far out here, and they're trained to hold it for at least 4 seconds. But that's at least 4 seconds. They can hold it longer based on their training, and they're doing both eyes twice for all of these tests.
Yeah.
So, I hear a lot that's a really, Brandon and I have both gone through field sobriety class, so we've had the test on it. It is a very painful, when they get it out there longer than that 4 seconds.
Yeah, they can hold it out there for up to 30 seconds, I think is what they're trained. So some officers will just hold it there and continue to see a jerk. Could be painful.
Yeah. And the last phase of the standardized test for the HGN is onset sustained nystagmus prior to 45 degrees. It's just 45 degrees out. They're looking to see if you have nystagmus prior to that. The non-standardized portion of that is a vertical gaze nystagmus. It's obviously not the same as horizontal gaze nystagmus. It's the one where they're going as high up as they can. That's one. When you see an officer allege that, most of the time it's going to be wrong, because in order to have vertical gaze nystagmus, you're talking falling on the ground impaired by alcohol. And one of the things that I didn't mention already, the horizontal gaze nystagmus is for alcohol impairment only. It's not for like a marijuana THC. If an officer is thinking that it's a THC type DUI and they're seeing nystagmus, there's probably something wrong with what they're seeing.
Yeah, it's a credibility issue that we talk about all the time with prosecutors on THC cases, on a lot of drug cases, is they would not be seeing it. So if they're claiming they see it, they clearly don't know what they're doing or didn't do it properly to be able to see it, but surely they did not. So it's a credibility issue with the officer, and there are ways that we potentially can get that testimony to come in to show that credibility issue, if the prosecutor is not working with us in resolving the case short of a DUI. But like Dakota said at the beginning, equal tracking, equal pupil size, right? They're supposed to stop the test, not even do it if there's not equal tracking or equal pupil size. We have this issue a lot in head trauma cases and car accident cases, right? Where field sobriety tests shouldn't be done, the HGN shouldn't be done under those circumstances.
Yeah, and their training tells them, there's multiple times in their manual or their training booklet that says head trauma mimics the signs of impairment. That's true for both physical actions such as slurred speech, unsteadiness on feet, but also causing nystagmus in the eyes.
So we talked about the horizontal gaze nystagmus. The second and third tests are the walk and turn, one leg stand. Both those tests must be with the proper instructions, proper roadside conditions, proper candidates as well, right? So let's start off with proper instructions. What type of issues do we see during that?
Yeah, so the walk and turn and the one leg stand, the walk and turn first, there are 8 clues that the officers are trained to look for in that test, 2 of which are during what's called the instruction phase. Those 2 clues are starting too soon and unable to maintain balance during that phase. In order for an officer to be able to count those clues against you, they need to tell you that you can't do something or you need to do something. So one of the most common ones I see is an officer will say, well, they showed starting too soon as a clue, but they never told them, hey, stay in this position until I tell you to begin this test. Or in the same clue, when they're starting too soon, they'll get out of the prescribed manner of standing. So they'll tell you, hey, stand, put your left foot on the line, right foot in front of it, heel to toe, stay there until I tell you to begin the test. Yeah. While the officer's, going over the test, giving the instructions, demonstrating the test, it can be a long time. And, if they don't tell you to stay in that position, and you just move your foot to the side, that will count as unable to maintain balance or during that instruction phase.
Yeah, same thing with, they're supposed to ask you, do you understand, right?
Exactly.
Because if you don't understand, same thing. They can't count it off against you if you don't understand the test. The walking phase is the next part of the test, right? 6 potential clues. Probably the most common we see is improper turn. An officer sometimes instructs it incorrectly, or they demonstrate it incorrectly, or it's the first time that they've ever shown you how to do this test. And they say, turn in the prescribed manner, a series of small steps, but they don't tell you what a series of steps are. To some people, a pivot or 2 steps is a series of small steps. They don't tell you they're looking for 3 or 4, but not 5. Don't go 5 steps to turn around. It has to be 3 or 4. Without them defining these things, makes it very easy to show clues, makes it very easy to have clues of impairment. But again, that's why those tests are not 100% accurate. Walk and turn 79%, one leg stand 83%, right? And so we talk about the instructions. We go through the 8, we go through the 4 potential clues on the one leg stand. But before they even start the test, there's a medical clearance to make sure you're the proper candidate, right? So what type of issues do we look at when we look at the proper candidate?
Yeah, so you'll get a wide range of what these medical clearances look like from the officers. And that's just because there's no magic words that they're trained that they have to ask. They just have to do a medical clearance is essentially what their training says. One of the more common phrases I see is, do you have any foot, knee, hip, ankle injuries, anything that would impede your ability to walk on a daily basis, or do you have any head injuries, those kinds of things. I would say that's the most common verbiage that I probably see if they ask the medical clearance questions at all. I would say it's more common than not that they'll ask, is there anything I need to know about? My response to that is always, how on earth would you, as someone that's about to do these tests that you have no idea what these tests consist of, know what they need to know about? So that is not a medical clearance that is going to pass muster with making sure that you're the suitable candidate for the field sobriety test.
Yeah, other issues come down to, are you 50 pounds or more overweight? Are you over the age of 65? The NHTSA manual used to say 60, moved to 65 because you're going to have degenerative disc disease or issues with your back leg and or ears, hips, those types of things. And so really anyone 60 or older, we're starting to look at those issues. And then we're also looking at issues as far as whether it's the proper roadside conditions, right? So again, what type of issues we look at as far as roadside conditions?
A lot of cases we see are someone on the interstate, on the side of I-40, right near paper mill, and they'll have a trooper out there doing field sobriety tests on the side of the interstate. Obviously there's cars whizzing by. I call them rumble strips. It's the little, you start veering off the side of the highway, it rumbles at you to get back on the road. They'll have people doing the walk and turn on these. Yeah. That's obviously not a flat surface like they're trained. A flat level surface free of debris is what they're trained to do these tests on. That's obviously not that. They have every ability to take you off of a exit or somewhere like a gas station parking lot that doesn't have cars flying by. That's obviously going to create a balance issue. So those are all things that we look for when we're watching field sobriety test videos.
Yeah, creates a balance issue. Potentially you may not hear the instructions because loud 18-wheelers are driving by. If it's wet roads, right? If it's been raining, they're also not supposed to do it on a wet roadway. So we look at all of these things to see, is it a standardized test? Is it fair to have you perform those tests under those conditions? And then we also look at, a variety of other defenses. When we're looking at these tests, we look at every little issue to see, well, was it fair? Was it standardized? And if not, the test shouldn't count against the person.
Exactly, because in order for these tests to be standardized through the studies that standardize them, all of these things need to happen. The medical clearance, the suitable candidate, the proper roadside conditions, appropriate instructions, demonstrations, all of these things have to be there or they become non-standardized. Thus, our argument is they're not reliable.
Yeah, exactly.